Okay, I'm hitting record on this interview mid-laughter because I had to capture what Chris and I were saying off screen. So I will say welcome, but I also want to invite you to share your name with all of us so that we can get the full story because it ties into the whole cognitive discussion we're going to have, and how we remember names is a big one, and no one is ever going to forget your name.
My name is Carisa Montooth, but my maiden name was Ford. So my name was Carisa Lavender Ford. So when you spelled it out, it's spelled Car is a Lavender Ford. And I was just telling you, in high school, everyone would remember my name because of it spelling out Car is a Lavender Ford. And I still have people. I was at Disneyland like 3 years ago, and somebody from high school came up. Like I ran into someone from high school, and they were like, "It's Car is a Lavender Ford." It's crazy the way that our brains, just certain things just connect, and we just remember them.
Well, and that's such an excellent coaching technique when we talk about remembering client names or having the mnemonic present is how we remember. So I love that you presenced a mnemonic with your introduction. Welcome to the interview series. I'm so glad to have you here today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Such an honor. So I have been so excited and looking forward to this interview. You are working in a unique area and field that, I was a cognitive science major in college, very interested in cognitive psychology, very interested in knowledge management and artificial intelligence and how the brain works. And when I got into the corporate world, was so fascinated by the people values culture aspects of corporate culture and really understanding how the individuals become part of a collective and how learning about ourselves and learning about each other become not only effective business tools, but they become peacemaking tools, they become communication tools, they become team building tools.
It becomes how you build community.
It's how you build community. So thank you again for joining us. Tell us a little bit more about your work and introduce yourself more fully.
Well, my name is Carisa Montooth. I'm a relationship coach for female entrepreneurs. And one of the things that I find when I work with my clients is that support is such a huge thing for us as female entrepreneurs.
Yes.
So a lot of times people are like, why do female entrepreneurs need a relationship coach? And I explain about, when for us, we're motivated really by different things. We want to be giving something to the world that makes a huge impact. And we're motivated by a lifestyle we want to create for our families. And emotional support is such a huge part of that. And it's, a lot of times what I'm finding is that the reasons that the support isn't coming is because of communication issues and communication breakdowns, and exactly like what we were talking about. And so one of the tools that I love to use, because I'm just like a personality psychology geek, I love to use personality psychology in working with my clients. My bachelor's degree was in psychology, and my master's degree is educational counseling. So it's that's the blend. That's what I do. I use psychology to teach people how to have better relationships. And the psychology, the personality psychology piece is such a huge part of it, because it's like so many times we're talking in our own love style, and we're thinking that that's love for everyone, right? So the other person is going, like, for example, like with my husband and I, my husband loves to do things for me, right? Which is awesome. But I love to hear like appreciative words. I love to hear that I'm special to him, that I'm unique, and that he sees that about me. So it's like cool that he took out the trash. But, it's not what feels like love to me.
Yeah.
So, and what it really comes down to is a personality style. It's a personality type. So I've done a lot of work with Myers-Briggs and some of the more recognized personality typing systems. But what I've found is that nobody wants to remember 16 personality types.
Yes.
And there are common traits that really break it down into 4 groups.
Okay.
So that's what I work with. I work with 4 personality groups, and they have characteristics of elements in nature. So I call them the strongest element. It's your strongest element. So like if you're a water element personality, you have these characteristics that are similar to actually the element of water in nature. So you're nurturing, and you're warm and supportive, and if you are a fire element personality, you're very dynamic, and you change all of the time, and people really have to keep up with you, and you're charismatic and you draw people to you. And if you're an air element personality, then you're very open-minded and kind of open to whatever new ideas are kind of coming up. And if you are an earth element personality, then you're very into stability and tradition and being able to predict what's going to happen next and feeling solid and secure. So those are the main personalities types. Those are the 4 personality types. And that's what I use, because we are all one of those.
Yep.
And when I break it down that way for clients, it's like they totally understand what I'm talking about.
Yep.
And I can say, oh, because you're a water, you think like this. And because he's a fire, he thinks like this. And
Yep.
it helps to take those kind of esoteric psychological concepts and just
Yep.
make it like, this is what it means
Yep.
to you and me, you know?
Absolutely. So when a person comes to you, what are some of the key things they're experiencing? I'm imagining either, especially because we're talking about the lens of entrepreneurship, maybe not being fully seen or valued for the work that you're doing, maybe pressure to do something other than what you're doing. Are those some of the key themes?
Totally. The biggest things that people say when they come to me is they say, my honey thinks about my business like it's a hobby.
Right, right.
Or they say, my honey wants to know when I'm going to get a real job with a steady paycheck.
Right. Okay.
Or my honey wants to know why I'm spending money, aka investing,
right?
Right. In my business when I'm not making the money I want to make yet.
Yeah. Yep.
Or maybe my honey comes from an old school business model and not a modern online entrepreneur business model. So he doesn't understand, I'm not just Facebooking for fun.
Right.
No, I'm not messing around.
Right.
I'm not just wasting time. Like, there are things I'm doing that are reaching the people that need me.
Yes.
You know? So it's really, those are the main things that people come to me about, and those are the things that we work on. And getting that support is so vital, because the biggest thing, the thing that's like heartbreaking to me when I talk to a client, and the thing that's totally heartbreaking is when someone will say, like, if you're launching your business and it's your dream business and you're like pouring your heart into it and your time and your energy, and maybe you're not making that much money yet, but everything that you have that you can is going into this business, and you're learning everything that you can possibly learn, right, about every aspect of the business, right? So you're learning like graphic design, so you can make your logo, right, and you're like building a website, and you're like figuring out how to make a MailChimp campaign work, and you're just doing all these things, and you're like, how much marketing is like authentic, and then how much is like pushy and salesy, and how can I be me, and my, how can I really get to the people that need my help, you know? And you're trying to figure out how to do all these things, and when you have these victories in your business where you're like, maybe my mailing list was only 8 people, but I did a MailChimp campaign to them, like I did my first newsletter,
right?
Like, if you go to talk to your honey about that and they're like, oh, that's cool,
right,
it's like so deflating.
Yes.
And that's the big thing, is they say, I don't have anyone to share my successes with, and it feels really lonely. And the first few times I started hearing that over and over again, it was like, okay, this is what I need to be helping people with. Because there are really 3 tiers of support for that.
Okay.
And what happens is it presents like an issue of like, oh, I'm not getting it from my partner, right? Because it's like, that's who we look to first.
Yep.
But what it really is there's a communication issue with my partner, and a lot of times it involves actually educating them about what it is to be an entrepreneur.
Sure.
And about what my boundaries are.
Yep.
Teaching, because we're always teaching other people how to treat us.
Yep.
So it's partly that. But then it's also, how do I build community with other people that already understand what I'm doing and reach out in that way?
Yep.
Because a lot of times people think that they need to do that through networking.
Yep. Yep.
For entrepreneurs that are introverts too, like me,
yes,
networking is like the scariest word in the world.
Right, right.
Oh God, I'd rather be in my pajamas. I'll do anything on my computer all day long.
Yep.
I just don't have to
do that thing.
Go out and meet with people.
Exactly.
So it's building that community as the second part of it, and then the third part is developing all of your internal resources and self-care and specific strategies for yourself.
Yep.
That have to do with all the things that we, it's funny because they're always the things that we know that we need to do, and they're always the thing that would support us in stressful situations, and they're always the things that go right out the window as soon as we're stressed.
Yep.
So it's always the things like getting our rest and drinking water and eating meals and
Yep.
you know, taking vitamins and doing our meditative practice or whatever it is.
Yep.
All those practices are the things that just go straight out the window.
Yep.
When we're stressed, but those are the things that would help us when we're stressed.
Yep.
And I remember hearing Ayanna Van Zant say something that just totally stuck with me. And she said, you know, we all know, right, that our body is the temple for our spirit, right? So when your temple is corrupt, then your spirit will be faint.
Mm.
And so it's like that's
so powerful.
You know? And another thing that she said that I remember hearing her speak, and these two things stuck with me. That stuck with me, and she said, if you wake up on Tuesday, go to bed on Tuesday. And I just instantly,
I love that.
Because it was like, you know, we're always burning the candle at both ends.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Those are so powerful. So I'm imagining there's some basic steps that you guide people through when they recognize that they need more support or they're feeling that loneliness. And you kind of touched on them, but I'm wondering how they fit into your work in the world. You know, one is you mentioned we have to understand ourselves first. So understanding the language and understanding these elements and then identifying ourselves in those. And then somewhere in there, we begin to then look at our partner again, or even, I'm guessing this would relate to anyone we're in relationship with, our business partner, our family. But then you begin to look outside yourself and say, oh, so you're this. And how do you guide people through those initial pieces? And then I'm imagining there's other steps. You've gotten to self-care. You've gotten to communication. Tell us how it kind of works in community. Yep.
So how it works for my process with my clients is that when they're coming in, we do an assessment and we figure out what their personality type is, but we also figure out which element their honey is. Yeah. So what is your partner? Mm-hmm. So that we can go, okay, these are some of the obvious communication things that we can see that are like hurdles.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
And then as I'm describing these things to them, they're going, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening. And then we know we're on the right path.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But the other thing is kind of setting the stage, because what we're talking about really, when that's going on in your relationship and you're thinking of the other person as being responsible for giving you all the support or really responsible for your happiness, we have to reframe that whole thing, right? And that has to happen in kind of a gentle way, mm-hmm. because we feel so justified. Right. Going, but you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And right. So it's your fault that I'm not happy.
Right.
So we really, we figure out who you are and who they are, but we reframe the whole thing to, okay, so now how can you take responsibility for getting some of the support that you need?
Yes.
And how can you look at this in a new way? And one experience that I had, a personal experience that I had in counseling with my husband really informed the way that I looked at this, because I remember when my daughter, who I was telling you, she's 3.5 now, right? I was talking about how she ran in here in her underwear, like jumped in my lap. I was like, whoa, we're not Skyping yet, so that's cool.
And what a blessing you mentioned too, that we work in a way that's all good and we can press pause whenever we want.
I love that she can come in and jump in my lap in her underwear, and I can give her a kiss and give her a cheese stick and be like, okay, I'll be right back.
Yep, I agree.
But the thing is, it's when my daughter was first born, you know, it's such a dynamic, amazing, life-changing time in a couple's relationship when their first child's born. And you really feel like you just all of a sudden woke up on another planet.
Yeah.
And you're like, everything is different. Is there gravity here? I don't even know. You know, you just feel like you completely have to get your bearings again. And during that time, I felt like, I mean, all I could think of was what I was going through. And the feeling of like, oh, my body doesn't feel like it's mine again yet. Mm-hmm. And I'm totally sleep deprived. And there's this other person that needs all of my attention. And a lot of times there's an isolation and a loneliness that happens with new moms because we're supposed to be 100% excited, over the moon, enthusiastic all the time.
Yep.
Or else it's like we don't
Right.
appreciate our child.
Right.
Like,
Right.
so we're not allowed to be messy while we're going through that.
Right.
And we're not allowed to be like happy that we got to go back to work. We're supposed to be going back to work going, oh my gosh, my baby. And I remember being excited, like in my car, calling my best friend going, I don't have spit up anywhere on me, and I'm listening to my music, and I get to drink coffee and do donuts. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so excited.
Right.
Life-changing time. So my husband and I were having all this difficulty, and we started going to counseling, and I felt so much resentment because I was like, his world didn't change the way mine did.
Yeah.
Like, my body changed. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do the goals I set for myself anymore. I don't even know if that's possible anymore. I don't even know if I'm allowed to want that anymore.
Right.
So we went to counseling, and the counselor said something that really informed, that totally, the insight of it totally changed the way that I was looking at my marriage, and it absolutely informs how I work with my clients. And she said, it's like both of you are in the deep end of the pool, drowning and floundering, and you're both looking at the other one going, why aren't you saving me?
Right.
And I was like, that's exactly what's happening. I wasn't looking at all of the ways that his life was changing. I was just going, your life's not changing as much as mine.
Yeah. Your
nipples aren't about to fall off from breastfeeding.
Yep.
These things, I was like, you don't have 30 pounds to lose, and crazy hormonal changes, and and I wasn't looking at all the ways that in his mind he was going, how does this change how I'm going to take care of my family? Do I have to be a completely different kind of a provider now?
Right.
And how it was calling up all of this stuff for his father and for his parents and all those kinds of things. So it's like a reframing thing that I do with my clients of, let's look at this again, instead of looking at it from the aspect of like, I am really resentful that I'm not getting what I need from you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at it from, okay, I'm responsible for getting the support that I need, whether that's from you or whether that's from a community or whether it's from resources I can build in myself or a combination of all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in charge of doing that.
Yep.
And when we think of it, like, there's a spiritual element to my practice, and a lot of times it's like when people come into the practice initially, like when I'm talking to them about it, I'll explain to them, I'm like, look, there's a science side that we're definitely going to talk about, but I can't ignore that there is a spiritual aspect to this. There is an energetic component, and I'm not going to get all woo-woo on you, but I am going to tell you that real things are happening as a result of that. And there is such a thing as unconditional love. Yeah. And there is such a thing as cultivating it in your relationship. And some of the things we look at from that perspective are like, we're using scientific ways of understanding an energetic principle that we already sense is real.
Totally. Yeah, it's a remembering. I always call it a remembering. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
So we're coming up on the point where I want to ask you about your one thing you would recommend. But before we do that, you open the door to that spiritual side, and that's a space that I go with all of my businesses quite a bit because I want to shine the light on the energetic component, the subtle components, those components that you mentioned that we all kind of feel and understand are there, but we don't always bring to the forefront of our communications or our discussion. They're also really powerful nuggets because often they illustrate where we might be in different place in the journey than our partner, and how can we honor and meet people where they are while still honoring where we are. There's this general notion in the more spiritual way of looking at relationships that what our partner is showing us in terms of behavior is actually a reflection for us of us. And I've always wondered how these two things coexist, personality typing and the concept of reflections of the other in you. And so I'm wondering if you've talked through that or thought through that and how those two inform one another.
Yeah, I'm actually doing a lot of research about that right now because I'm planning to write about that.
Wonderful.
And it's such a rich area, because the way that I think of it is that your spirit is always what is the truest motivation in you, right? It's who you are regardless of anything ever. Nothing else in your life, no matter what else changes in your life or what else is happening in your life, it's eternal, and it's the purest essence of who you are. And I think of personality as the way that that translates out into the world, so the behaviors that that has out into the world. And then even beyond that, there's this other aspect of role. So it's like this big, it's like these circles, right? So in the center is spirit, and then outside of that is personality, and then outside of that is role, right? So your role is what you do, and your personality is how you do it, and your spirit is who you are. That unchanging, eternal part. So I think what I've seen with clients on the spiritual, energetic level the most is that I had a client who had a partner who was very fearful about her business being launched. And he was very much attached to security. He had no reference really for entrepreneurship, and he just needed stability and needed to know what was going to happen next. But he was very fearful around the idea of entrepreneurship. And when she was describing to me how they first met each other, and kind of the progression of their relationship at the beginning, one of the things that I said to her was, well, you discovered each other and became attracted to each other at a time when you were really fearful yourself about launching a new business. And so she really attracted to her a partner who was also fearful about entrepreneurship, right? And who also didn't know that it was going to work out, and who also was really concerned about leaving stability behind. And then as she started to evolve in her business, it became this thing where they were at different places in spiritual development. Where she's evolving in her business, and you know, like they always say that launching a business is like the most powerful personal development thing that you can do in your life, which I would say aside from parenthood, but you know, it's like, and it's true. It brings all your stuff up. It brings all your worthiness issues up. It brings all your confidence issues up. It brings all of that stuff up. So as she's going through this huge upheaval and, you know, an evolution, and he's kind of still in this fearful place, and what we had to do together was go, okay, how do we show him what you're going through and connect you to where he's going through without you identifying too much with where he is. Or reinforcing the fearfulness too much of where he is. You know, because if you're trying to go forward, you can try to encourage people, you know, that are going in the same direction, but you can't stop and bemoan where you are. You know, you've got to keep moving forward. And
I love that.
And they have amazing, well, I really think it's like when you know, you can show so many people a way to go by example. You can't show them a way to go by if they're feeling miserable, if they have a poverty consciousness or these kinds of things. You don't help them by going into a poverty consciousness and misery, right? Like you help them by going, look what's possible for us. Isn't that great? Let's do it together. You know?
But so
what
powerful.
I saw in their relationship that was so amazing was after she started doing some of the things that we talked about, he all of a sudden had this like epiphany where she got up in the morning, and he had been up all night, and he was talking to her and basically just like hugged her and was like really vulnerable and just showing her all, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I was afraid of, but I have so much confidence in you, and I love you so much, and I know you can do it, and just be patient with me because I have these fears, but I'm working on them, and I love you, and it's going to be okay. And like everything changed for them. I was like, that's like the greatest thing for me, to be able to help someone have that experience in their relationship and their business and their life is like, you know, it's like such a humbling honor and blessing, you know, to be able to be part of that journey with somebody is like amazing. You know, to get to do that is like so cool.
It is. It's so powerful, and it's, you know, as you said, one of the primary 3 ways that we align to our truth is through our heart and through our relationships. So to see someone sink into alignment and to invite that shift is such a
Yeah,
blessing.
totally.
It's like the birth of a
Totally.
baby. It's so good.
Well, yeah, because when people come to me, the two biggest questions that women ask me when they come to me are you going to make me break up with my partner?
Right,
That's
right,
number one.
right,
That they ask me. And the other thing they ask me is, does he have to come with me?
right, right.
No, to both of those, you can, because a relationship is like it's like a system, and it homeostasis to it, and
Yeah,
families are like this too.
yeah,
And because there's an entity that you create, right? That's like an entity in itself, and it's like it's invested in maintaining the status quo,
right.
right? So you don't, the energy of that wants to keep everything the same. And so when you have when you change part of it, you can change the system, but
Yes,
there's going to be this resistance,
yes,
right?
yes.
You don't have to both go, we're going to change everything and
Right.
everything is going to be, oh, it's going to be so great. You're going to go on a cleanse. I'm going to go on a cleanse. You're going to work out every day. I'm going to work out. You know what I mean? It's like
Totally.
you can do things
Yeah.
for yourself that still change your relationship with the other person.
Totally.
So
So
that's
this brings me to my pivotal question, which is what is that thing? If you had to boil it down to one thing that a person could do to start to align themselves to this kind of shift, to really bring themselves forward more fully, or to maybe it's a way that they can bring the support for themselves, or the thing that would open the door to this kind of shift in their relationship, what is one thing that you would recommend someone do to start onto this path?
the one thing that they need to do is stop following the golden rule.
Okay.
Stop saying to yourself, I have to treat them how I want to be treated, and upgrade to the titanium rule.
Okay, I want to hear it.
Which is let them the way that they need to be treated. I want to treat them how they need to be treated,
I
not
love
how
it.
I want to be treated. And it's such a subtle little mind shift, but it makes a huge difference in people's lives. And I've just seen it happen over and over and over again. And that would be the main thing I would tell people, because it's the biggest mistake people make, because it's so drilled into
Yes.
us. Like, treat other people how you want to be treated. Treat other people how you want to be treated. And we take it literally. And what it means is just don't hurt other people because you don't want to be hurt, right? Don't unfair to people because you don't want people to be unfair to you. It's the idea of social reciprocity and that kind of a thing. But really, we take it literally and we misapply it in our relationships. So what it really means is it's like when you have children, you have more than one child, and your kids are different, right? If you
Yeah.
did exactly the same thing for each child,
Yep.
that wouldn't be the best way to love those kids,
Right.
because they need different things.
Yep.
And if someone has if your partner has a different personality type than you do, and they do, I'm like 100% sure they do, because we always pick the partner with a different personality type than us, which is this huge opportunity for evolution of our soul.
Sure.
Because they have so many different things that we can learn from, right? We don't want to just keep learning how to be like ourselves.
Yep.
We want to grow, right?
Totally.
So it's like, so that's the biggest thing, is that little mind shift of it. Instead of thinking, this is what I would want them to do for me, is to really think about them, because they've given you clues the entire time you've known them of what they really want.
I love it.
And if you stop trying to remake them into what you think that they should want,
yeah,
or what you want, and just go, this is what they want. What we're really talking about is like being responsible for developing a capacity for unconditional love.
I love it.
Right?
Yep. And our ability to give.
Because that's what we need.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
That's what we're trying to do, right?
Wow. Well, tell us where we can find you. You work with female entrepreneurs one-on-one. Your consulting services are invaluable. We can find you online. Where's the best place to connect with you?
The best place to connect with me is through my website.
Okay.
CarisaMontooth.com.
Okay, great.
But I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm everywhere.
Wonderful. Well, I encourage everyone to do so. Of course, we will have your insights below and also your guest post in the journal as well. And I just want to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. You have touched in on some of the most critical topics that we face as people on healing journeys, entrepreneurship journeys, relationship journeys, and your unique lens and approach is like kind of like I'm being shown like this window being blown open, like fresh air, so much light, so much. I think that's probably the nature of unconditional love that you're bringing forward through this. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's my pleasure.
We'll talk soon. Thanks.